Well, good evening. I'm Alan Jackson, and welcome to Nashville. A lot of people have been moving to Tennessee over the past few years, and it's not because we have beachfront resorts. People say it's because of the values, the people, the common sense approach to government that led them here. Well, hopefully, as a new group of leaders take the helm in Washington, we'll start to see some of those values emerge across our nation.
They are destroying our country. Then you add inflation to it, and you add the bad economy, and you talk to the people right here that are paying 30, 40, 50% more for their groceries, which I think I can say is right. Am I right?
Yes, that's right.
It's a disgrace.
You know, just a reminder, but President-elect Trump has been president before, and many of his policies were undone within 6 weeks of Biden coming into office. So what will be different this time? Will he actually be able to deliver what he promised during the campaign? Well, I think we're moving into the new year with a sense of hope. He's handpicking leaders to join him on his cabinet and staff, people who support free speech, a smaller and more effective government, and other principles like these. Still, we see a lot of disagreement with his selections, and that gives some insight on his heart condition of our nation. We desperately need a heart change. One of Trump's picks is my friend, Mike Huckabee. When he was nominated to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel, I promise you he was already a very busy man, but he's shifting his life plan to take on this important new assignment. Well, I believe there's a powerful lesson that we can take from people like Huckabee. Are we willing to allow God to disrupt our status quo and our plans when he has something new for us to do? We also see this in Trump. He could be relaxing on the beach at Mar-a-Lago, but instead he's taken on a difficult new role with plenty of public criticism. He loves his nation, and he believes he can lead it to a better path. So he's spending his golden years not winding down, but amping up. Well, in other corners of the world, the fighting in Gaza continues with no end in sight for the war or the plight of those persons, those hostages still in tunnels. To the north, there's a tenuous ceasefire remaining in place. In Syria, a murderous regime has been overturned. It sounds hopeful, but it leaves minority groups, including Christians, at risk while we wait to see what kind of government will replace the dictatorship of Assad. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, we'll see some more sweeping changes as well. The new Congress, our 119th, contains 7 freshman senators, 74 new House members. They'll all start to work on January the 3rd. Well, it's clear the challenges our new president and his administration face are great. But it's important to remember that no person, no cabinet, and no political party alone is going to change the trajectory of our nation. That takes the power of Almighty God. And I'm excited to see what he will do as we follow him into this new season. Well, coming up, we're going to get some perspective on what's happening from Senator and Ambassador Scott Brown. He's got an impressive background and a helpful perspective. I've got a lot of questions for him. We'll be right back with Scott Brown. Well, we're back, and my guest is a familiar face for many of you, former Senator Scott Brown. Scott, welcome back.
It's great to be on, Alan.
You've got some expertise. Help us out a little bit. How do you think the transition is progressing so far?
I think better than expected. They started out a little rough with some of the nominees, but they're doing what they're supposed to do and go and pay respects, go and listen to the senators, make your case, and try to convince them that you are the person for the job. And the good news is, out of all that, unlike when I went before those committees, is that President Trump has a mandate. He won the popular vote, he won the Electoral College, the House and the Senate. So it's a little different feel. So regardless of really what a couple of senators may do, it's more than likely he'll get his nominees passed through the Senate for sure. But I think it's going to go deeper than that. You see Fetterman, for example, has come out in support of some of them, and others. They're listening, and I think that's important. I think the Democrats recognize that, the president does have a mandate, and maybe we can find some common ground. Who knows? Maybe it's a new trend.
You have personal experience with how the Senate proceeds with cabinet and other high-level nominees. You've been in the Senate voting for confirmations, and you've been in the Senate witness chair when you were confirmed as ambassador to New Zealand in 2017. What's it like from those two very different vantage points?
Well, both are an honor. First of all, let's start with that. It's also very humbling. I took that advising consent role very, very seriously on everybody. I did my homework and due diligence on every single person that came before me. And I believe that many of the senators, the majority of the senators, do that as well. And then being really in front of them as the one being grilled and potentially seeking that appointment, it was humbling. Yeah, I knew them on the outside, either through social circumstances or actually advocating or battling with them, and then ultimately convinced them that I was the right person for the job. And as I think you referenced, 94-4 is one of the highest appointment acceptances really that year.
Yeah, you mentioned that your confirmation was overwhelming, 94-4. That must have felt pretty good. Did you work the
Yeah,
members door to door before those hearings?
yeah, of course. Yeah, I gave respect to everybody. I don't know. It wasn't as formal as that. Sometimes I grab them in the gym. Hey, listen, I'm up. I want to just talk to you a minute, or we do something over lunch. It wasn't as formal as what you're seeing here. I had that ability to do that because obviously I had a relationship with them.
Republicans in the Senate voted for John Thune as their majority leader. He wasn't Trump's first choice. Could that be a source of friction further down the road?
I think they get over it. Listen, John's a full disclosure. I went to his daughter's wedding. I speak to him pretty regularly, and I have since the day I met him. He's a wonderful man. He's a faithful patriot, and I wish him well. And they'll get over it. They know that they have the majority, and they are going to basically, hopefully, fulfill President Trump's agenda. And you see a lot of the things he's talking about. He's already acting like he's the president. I haven't seen Biden or Harris anywhere, unless Biden's giving out pardons for his family or others that, quite frankly, may not deserve it, or going away, giving away more of our money. So he's already acting like the president.
It's really remarkable to see how the leaders from the nations of the world have migrated towards him every time they've had an opportunity. It seems like the negotiations have already started for this next season of his leadership. Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah, of course. I think that's how he is. He wants to hit the ground running. He's already talking about his executive order reversals, eliminating some of the ones that Biden has in place, and DEI and other things. Obviously, the border is the most important issue, and then he's going to have to address the high cost of goods, inflation, unleashing our energy production. I personally believe by unleashing the energy production, it'll help offset the high prices and high inflation, because that economic engine will export our energy sources around the world, and then we can look to tackle the spending that Doge is actually working on. So that combination will help, I believe, help in a great manner.
You know, his personality and his leadership style are so different from what we've been watching. The interaction he had with Trudeau to the north, it felt like it changed the position between our two countries in that one interaction. He challenged him on the trade deficit, and before he was done, he was just suggesting he be a governor. I mean, it was a complete role reversal in one. It's amazing to watch it unfold, isn't it?
Well, you have to understand. I mean, even when I met with him in the White House, it doesn't matter who you are. Usually, when you do those things, it's a sign that you actually like somebody. Like, if I see somebody and I like them, we usually give them a hard time, like right from the beginning, to see if they can handle it. And if they pass the test, then they're one of us, and we have a long-term relationship. Yeah, I thought it was hilarious what obviously the president did. Canada being the next state, them being the governor. He's very thin-skinned. You see him, I think, today coming back and trying to do some jabs at the president, and he's got the Teflon. It just kind of bounces off him, and Trudeau looks like kind of weak, quite frankly.
I'll step back a minute to Senator Thune. His selection was done by secret ballot. There's no way for Mr. Trump to know who defied him on that vote. Did you think the result would have been different if that ballot had been done in the open?
Yeah, possibly, but they've been making that pitch for almost a year, ever since Mitch announced his retirement from that position. So they know they're lining up votes. They walk in, and then it's almost a pro forma type of thing. They already knew who was voting for who, and so as a result of that, yeah, secret ballot, that's the tradition. I'm a traditionalist. I believe in tradition. I believe in Christmas, and I believe in all the traditions that we've had, and I think that's important.
Well, the president-elect and his cabinet selections are talking about a whole myriad of changes they want to bring to Washington, D.C. Which of those plans, that at least the ones we know about, are the most exciting to you at this point?
Well, obviously the border, not only securing the border, but getting out the criminal illegals, and then, basically a majority of them. And then I thought his comments about the Dreamers was very sensitive and thoughtful. It's a question of how we go about that, not to, basically reward illegality. I think is really something that they have to wrestle with. That plus, as I said, the energy, making sure we get our energy resources to help offset inflation, help to pay down our debt and deficit. And then I think the other thing is what Vivek and Musk are doing is to get a handle on our spending and look at all these overlapping programs and eliminate them or strengthen them. Really, if you have a program that's going gangbusters, well, let's take that money and put it in that, and let's have it go even better. I think that's what people are kind of missing a little bit.
I was intrigued that Mr. Trump invited the Chinese premier to his inauguration. I'd be interested in your perspective of that. Do you think he's going to offer him a governor's role as well?
I don't know about that. He'll probably give him like a planet, name a planet after him or something. But I think it's a good move, and that's one of the unpredictability characteristics of the president. Reaching out and doing things that really, quite frankly, aren't orthodox, and keeping Xi on his toes. And like, if he turns it down now, does that mean he doesn't like the president? If he accepts it, then does he look weak at home? Quite frankly, I'd accept it. I think it's an honor. It's an honor to participate. For him to be asked, I think is a good olive branch and a mechanism to start a new relationship, because we have to deal with not only the trade deficit, the lack of access into China, the fentanyl issues, and a lot of the security issues, the over-leveraging of Pacific Island nations, manipulating their currency and building and militarizing islands and doing things that really should not be done. It sets a good tone.
Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, has already submitted his resignation. Is it realistic to think that these new appointees can truly change these enormous bureaucracies? It seems like a daunting task to me.
Well, I think he'll be one of the worst FBI directors ever, in that he basically sent out to patriots, school moms and dads who are protesting as a result of what they saw in their school systems. He had them either arrested or investigated. The fact that he sends SWAT teams to people who are people of faith and others, basically weaponizing, I felt, the FBI against patriots, and really not addressing the things that matter, which is the threats that face our country, not from the parents and people that don't like the way that their school and other committees are working. I think it's abhorrent. I think it should step down right now. See you later.
Let's go back overseas. Put your ambassador's hat back on us. What do you think the response from the nations is going to be towards Mr. Trump? We've seen a little bit of it already.
Yeah, listen, you're already seeing it. It's from day one. I mean, I'm in touch with obviously the folks in New Zealand on a regular basis. Other former ambassadors in those nations, the ASEAN, Indo-Pacific areas. And yeah, you see it immediately. You see obviously what's happening in Gaza. You see what's happening in Israel. You saw what happened in Syria. There's so many different things that are basically tied like almost a spider web into this election, because they know now that, okay, there's a new sheriff back in town. The sheriff can coherently speak. He's not going to fall downstairs. He's not going to hide in a bunker. And, his vice president is also going to be out there working very hard, and his cabinet. No more, obviously, Secretary Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, is not addressing things that need to be done. No more border czars that don't show up. There's a new sheriff in town, and they're already working on things, and you see the changes right now, and I think it's amazing and it's wonderful.
Well, Scott Brown, you always bring some clearly spoken wisdom to the confusion of Washington, D.C. It's a pleasure to be with you as usual.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. God bless.
I like your poinsettia. Your Christmas decorating skills are underrated.
Yeah, you should see the rest of the house. It looks great. I'm going to put out some more Christmas lights right after this outside. I feel like Grimwald, what's his name? From Vacation, National Lampoon Christmas Vacation.
We'll wait for you to light the house.
All
Stay
right,
with
thank
us.
you.
I have some more thoughts you'll want to hear right after the break. You know, it's Christmas season. You probably don't need me to remind you of that. It's a time of great change. We're seeing the year come to a conclusion. We're reflecting back over what's happened, and we're looking forward. Well, it's a time of transition in our nation as well, and overseas beyond that, we see change all over the earth. There's a whole new leadership, a new cabinet, a new administration, new policies being put in place in our nation. Well, in the context of the church, if you'll allow me, I want to suggest to you that God is putting together His own leadership team for His own assignment. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 14 is probably familiar to many of you. Jesus was speaking. He said, "You're a light of the world. The town built on a hill can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house." Well, I believe God intends for you and me to be light in this world. I can tell you that will require courage to take God's truth into our culture, to our kitchen table, into our holiday tables, into our friends' network, to speak up even in the face of people that we know probably aren't going to applaud. We don't want to be angry or belligerent or demeaning, but we have an assignment to take the truth, to be an advocate for the good news that we know. The greatest force for the transformation of humanity available on planet Earth today is the church. It's not the United States government or the United States military or the Pentagon. As awkward as it may seem, it's people just like you and me, filled with the Spirit of God, willing to live out our faith, to lead with our faith in this unique season. I'm grateful for everyone that's accepted an assignment to go to Washington and initiate change, but this is our time for you and me to lead with our faith. Let's have the courage to do that this holiday season. If we will, there's more reasons for hope than despair, I promise. When we return, I'm going to read some of your emails. Thank you for taking the time to send your emails. Your thoughts and your perspectives are an encouragement to all of us on the team for this program. Larry from Pennsylvania wrote, "I appreciate your biblical perspectives on what is happening in our world, especially during this past election. Watching President Trump present his choices for his new cabinet has been enlightening. Most of them seem to be swamp cleaners and loyal to his vision. What are your thoughts about his leadership directions surrounding his choices?" Well, Larry, I would agree. It seems to me he's broken with the status quo, and he intends to send some people to some powerful offices with the goal of bringing meaningful change. But I also know how difficult that is. I'm a pastor in a local church. Initiating change in a local congregation is a difficult lift. We want to park in the same place and sit in the same seat and come to church at the same time, and anybody who introduces change is an enemy. I can't imagine the headwinds that these people will face as they try to bring change to these whole governmental departments and into our nation. We're going to have to be attentive, use our voices, be affirming, and have the courage to stand with them. If we do that, I think we'll see some change come. Pat from Texas writes, "We have to stay so guarded about what our children and grandchildren are viewing. I ran across a movie today and was sickened. Please caution parents to never assume a PG-rated animated movie is probably okay for our children to watch. Enjoy your program so much. I continue to learn with each episode." Well, I'll tell you what, Pat, we'll make a promise. We'll do our best to keep this program safe for children to watch. And thank you for your diligence. Finally, Ron from Boonville, Mississippi. "I watch every broadcast of Alan Jackson Now, and I DVR Alan Jackson Ministries. Your interview with Alveda King was, in fact, a sermon, which I'm going to include with your own messages in my DVR library." Well, everybody needs a DVR library filled with my sermons. It's for those nights when you can't sleep. That'll put you right into a coma. Alan Jackson Now is being posted every day on YouTube at 8 p.m. If you missed the broadcast on TBN, you can go to YouTube. It's posted every evening after 8 p.m., and you can see today's broadcast. Well, if you haven't yet, take a moment to send your email to comments@alanjacksonnow.com. Your feedback and your questions, they do a lot to shape our show. I'm Alan Jackson, and I pray you have a wonderful evening.